Alright, settle in folks, we have got a lot of pointless plastic to go over. Today we turn our attention to the tactical RPG series Fire Emblem. I love this odd little fantasy chess simulator, so this has been a fun showcase to make. Now, if you're looking at all these lords and capes thinking this is gonna be a boring video, they all look the same. I'd say, no, this one's blue hair has a slight green hue to it. They're totally different. We're gonna run a leaner ship today and drop the compatibility section where I talk about what each figure does in-game. Why? Because there's already this great hour-long video discussing everything these figures do. Okay, onto the plastic. First up, we have a handful of Super Smash Bros. Series Amiibo. These Fire Emblem characters all received Amiibo following their inclusion in the Smash series as playable fighters. Let's start things off with the protagonist of FE's debut entry, as well as the first character introduced to Smash as a fighter. Oh boy, here we go. When you hear me or others talk about early Amiibo growing pains, this is the figure we have in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Patient Zero, Marth. Now, it's not Marth's fault he's ugly as shit. He was born that way. As part of the first wave of the Smash Amiibo back in November 2014, he had the dubious task of representing a more anime-inspired look against a lineup of simple cartoony characters like Mario, Pikachu, and Kirby. Life ain't fair. Considering the rising popularity of Fire Emblem at the time, including a series rep in the highly marketed first wave of Amiibo was a smart decision. Having it be the series' golden boy whose inclusion in Melee first introduced Fire Emblem to a worldwide audience is also fitting. Little did we know the consequences. Marth's small, squashed face has been a community joke for over a decade at this point, but honestly, this figure isn't all bad. His head's a disaster, but the rest of him is okay. I like the overall design. It takes the standard FE tunic he sported in Melee and Brawl and adds a touch of his flowing robes and cape look the part, and there's some fine details on his armor and boots. The highlight is the intricate emblem on his back. The falchion is in a could be better, could be worse limbo. On one hand, the hilt is pretty bland. On the other, the blade's not bent to hell and back like Link's. Marth's really not the dumpster fire that collectors, myself included, have made him out to be. But he's not great either, and is typically relegated to the back row of my display. Skipping ahead to Wave 3 of the Smash line, here's Ike representing the excellent Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn duology. While still not an amazing figure by modern standards, Ike's more battle-ready mercenary attire gave Nintendo a bit more to work with when compared to Marth's simple tunic. The deep colors of his layered leather and metal armor pop against the red of his cape, and the lighter green of his leg and hand wraps help round out his aesthetic. His frayed cape is very fitting for his life on the road, and I like the visible stitching on his gauntlets. His weapon, Ragnell, is where we see the most improvement. Its ornate hilt and gold-leafed blade really put Marth's falchion to shame. After making eye contact with this hump of plastic for an uncomfortable length of time, I'd say his facial features are really only a slight improvement over Marth's, but his more defined locks of hair are a step in the right direction. Ike's pretty good, I guess, especially for Wave 3. I remember Wave 4 of the Smash line as the pinnacle of Amiibo scarcity and stock shortages. Waves 1, 2, and 3 were a struggle, but Wave 4 hit like a truck. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't secure a Robin figure at launch, but my friend found and imported a Japanese figure at a good price for my birthday a little later. Robin's tactician getup helps him stand out amidst this lineup of lords in capes. The character's potential build diversity in his home game, Awakening, is well represented in Smash. The amiibo depicts him wielding the thunderous Levin sword alongside a tome in his offhand containing lightning spells. The blade has a striking appearance, and the pages of the tome contain elegant ancient text outlining a spell. Unfortunately, my figure is a tad lopsided, but I'm pretty sure that's just a one-off defect. It's known to happen to a few amiibo without solid support stands, like the Smash Bros. Samus figure. Robin's face and hair pick up where Ike's left off. A slight improvement, but still well below the higher standards set by more recent figures. While Robin's robes kind of make him look like a substitute teacher at Hogwarts, the gold and purple trim add some nice flair to the outfit. Overall, I think this is a solid amiibo. While Robin initially eluded me, I got lucky and scored the Lucina amiibo pretty early. It's helpful that Lucina's design resembles Marth's, as it shows the steady improvements made between waves 1 and 4. Everything from her armor, embroidered tunic, headband, belts, and clasp all look just a bit sleeker. Awakening's redesigned falchion is free of warping or blemish, which is great considering that it's front and center. Her longer hair looks pretty good, and her face has a determined expression that's actually readable. Good stuff. While not entirely free of the uncanny valley, by Wave 4 it seems Nintendo was starting to find a groove with this type of amiibo. Damn. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. The first 4 figures we looked at showed small, incremental jumps in quality, but Roy's a leap. Smash gives Roy a daring and confident personality, and his showy duds reflect this characterization. The rich red of his hair and his singed cape pop against the white and gold armor. There's still a lot of Fire Emblem blue here, but it's reflective and brighter. It's boisterous and showy, just like his chaps, which I f***ing love. Are we talking Fire Emblem or Red Dead here? The ornate binding blade is the best looking sword so far. You can actually make out the individual sapphires in the hilt, which is pretty cool. This is a great amiibo. I said earlier that Marth is relegated to the back row of my display. Roy's always at the front. Taking a break from the Smash Bros. Figures, here's the debut 2-pack release from the Fire Emblem line of amiibo. This is Alm and Celica, repping my favorite 3DS Fire Emblem game, Shadows of Valentia, a remake of the Japan-exclusive second game in the series. Let's look at Alm first. This figure's a bit of an oddity to me. He doesn't necessarily look bad, but coming off of Roy a full year prior, he feels a bit cheaper. He's got this weird smile caught somewhere in a postcode between Creepyville and the Uncanny Valley, and the reflective coating on his armor kinda gives me a Saturday morning cartoon vibe. It's interesting, Roy's sparse reflective armor makes him look confident, but on Alm it seems cheap. Kinda like Noah's coat, Alm's armor really isn't super reflective in-game, so this design choice on the figure is weird. While I'm in this negative spiral, we've lost our good streak on amiibo swords. Alm's royal sword is bent to hell and back. I'm also not really a fan of the new base on Alm or any of the Fire Emblem series amiibo. It's just plain cobblestone on a red foundation, could be taken from any town map. It doesn't scream Fire Emblem to me in the same way that the Xeno or the Zelda bases do for their games. Bitch and moan, I know. There are things I like here. His hair, for example, or the sculpt of his plated armor. The reflective layer is a bit odd, but I like the design, especially the divots all around it. Some are part of the aesthetic, while others are dense from battle. It's a nice touch. Moving on to Celica, I think she fares a bit better than her partner. Her battle dress has a glossy finish that I like more than Alm's reflective armor. She looks ready to rock a dinner party or a battlefield. There's also just more complexity to her design. Alm is fairly monochromatic, but Nintendo was able to have a bit more fun with the details on Celica's outfit. The gold and red symbols encircling the hem of her dress are highlights, as is the armor plating around her shoulders. There's also this really cool crease running down her cape from where her left hand grips it. Unfortunately, her right hand is wielding a very bendy blade. I think it's supposed to be the beloved Zofia, but honestly, the hilt is so bland, I'm not 100% sure. Another thing I'm unsure of is her head. Kinda seems smaller than the other figures. Maybe I'm just imagining things, but something about it just feels off. No other part of her feels out of scale with the other amiibo. Anyway, the bizarre head thing aside, this is a good figure. Jumping back over to Smash, we have an interesting pair of figures to discuss. Here's male and female amiibo of Corrin, the protagonist of Fire Emblem Fates. Since Corrin was the player avatar in that trilogy, their gender and appearance could be customized. Unfortunately, Nintendo never went back and released a female Robin amiibo. These amiibo are pretty great. I'm just going to talk about both of them at the same time because they're obviously very similar. There's no paint bleed on their complex crisscrossing armor, which is impressive considering the stark contrast in colors. Any bleed would stick out like a sore thumb. Their sword, the Yato, is excellent on both amiibo. The blades aren't bent, and the jagged ridges, intricate hilts, and spiraling effects all look awesome. Their face and hair are definitely a step up when compared to Alm and Celica. The male Corrin's hair looks especially good considering his wacky cowlicks. Bro needs a comb. Unfortunately, I'm not really a fan of his pose. He's on the back foot in a defensive stance, which kinda makes him look like he's tilting like my Robin figure. He's not, it's just his stance, and he has a solid support stand, but I can't really unsee it. That's one of the reasons I think the female Corrin pulls ahead just a bit. She also has the same cool thing going on with her cape that Celica did. There's creases where she grabs the cape, which is a pretty fun detail. Anyway, regardless of which one's better, both Corrins are pretty good amiibo. Okay, we're back to the Fire Emblem line with another Awakening rep. Here's Chrom filling out the last of that game's core trio. This amiibo released alongside the spin-off Fire Emblem Warriors for the Switch. This is an all-around solid figure. He's an amiibo that looks great at a distance when he's on your shelf or up close when he's in your hand. His outfit and armor aren't too flashy, but the figure is still chock full of nice details, like the row of buckles running up his boot or the little chain keeping his pauldron in place. His falchion is a bit more detailed than Lucina's. It does bend slightly, but it's not that noticeable when he's facing straight ahead. Of course, the star of the show is his frayed cape, which swirls around him in a very unrealistic yet badass way. Bit of a shorter section, but I don't really have much more to add, to be honest. Like I said, Chrom's a solid amiibo. Here's Tiki, who also released alongside Fire Emblem Warriors, although she and Chrom were not in a 2-pack. She's another rep from Marth's games, and she's a key ally in his party. I know I previously said I don't care for this Fire Emblem amiibo base, but for what it's worth, the maroon color does complement Tiki's outfit of deep purples and pinks. Beyond that, the figure looks good. I find the sculpt of her sash and shawl to be quite impressive. It feels like it realistically bends and shifts with the weight of the fabric. There's also nice details on her dragonstone and anklets. I think she has one of the best face and hair sculpts so far on these Fire Emblem amiibo. Her flowing, long green hair is a lot of fun, and she has a very clear and expressive smile. Good stuff. Up next is... didn't we just talk about you? After Chrom's inclusion as a fighter in Smash Ultimate, Nintendo decided to double down on their public declaration of love to Matthew Mercer by giving Chrom a second amiibo. Comparing these fellas is quite interesting. I think this one's face and hair sculpt are marginally better. The first Chrom kinda looks like he's pouting. The second is all stoic determination, with a less detailed hilt and a warped blade. This one's falchion is not up to snuff. It's evident that the Chroms have different interpretations of how the wind can make capes look badass. The first swirls around him like a cloak. The second billows in the breeze. I tend to think the first Chrom amiibo is a bit flashier, but the second ain't no slouch. Either way you go, both Chroms are pretty nifty. And finally, we reach the end with Byleth from Three Houses, who received a figure following his inclusion in Smash Ultimate as a DLC fighter. Like Robin and Corrin, Byleth is an avatar, meaning that players can pick the character's gender. However, Nintendo opted to cut back and only produce one amiibo this time around. This is a solid, albeit not mind-blowing amiibo. The designs on his robe and gauntlets come out well, and the sleeves catching a slight breeze as the character pivots look nice. Byleth is an emotionless character by convenient narrative design, and I guess this stoicism is well captured by his cardboard face. I really like the overall aesthetic of the relic weapons in Three Houses. The flaming sword of the creator draws the eye as a nice centerpiece. Overall, Byleth's a good amiibo, and a decent enough finale for this video. Well, I think that about covers it for the Fire Emblem figures. Thanks for watching. These videos are a fun little outlet to discuss some of my favorite series. If you made it this far, why not hit like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.